How's it going, guys? It's still here for more OG Talk videos. So in this episode, we'll be discussing the inevitable destruction of the ultimate combination robot in OG, the SRX, basing from the Alpha timeline with our special guest, none other than Ryusei himself. Well, for a quick refresher, make sure to check out my translated video of the event down in the description below. And make sure to subscribe to see more of these type of videos. Any type of support helps. Anyway, let's begin. The SRX is the pride and strength of not only the SRX team, but also the Steel Dragon squad. It has been around since the beginning of the games, maintaining versatility both in the story and gameplay. Besides its strength, its participation on the first extraterrestrial war against the aliens in the new AD era, or the beginning of the OG, made it a symbol of hope against alien invaders, specifically the Irrigators. The soon after United Terra Federation dubbed this war as the L5 campaign in the OG timeline, and Balmar campaign in the Alpha timeline. So, the SRX, a quick recap on what it is. The Super Robot X-Type is a 3-unit machine combination that houses the massive radioactive material energy source known as the Tronium. The integration of the Tronium engine allows for the SRX to manage dangerous levels of Tronium, and converts it to raw energy. It is regulated by psychodrivers utilizing its built-in T-Link system, a system that amplifies telekinetic abilities and funneling it on the unit. Advancements in Tronium and T-Link system research and the SRX itself was led by Ingram Pliskin, and supported by Kenzo Kobayashi. The SRX appeared in various games with the same premise with minor differentiations. It has appeared in various games such as Superhero Operations, Super Robot Spirits, Neo Super Robot Wars, which is my very first SRW at all, by the way. It's a small fun fact. The Alpha games, specifically in Alpha 1 and in Prelude of Alpha 3, and finally in OG. In the Alpha and OG timeline, the SRX is the culmination of the Extra Over technology, in short as EOT, that was first cultivated from Meteor 3. In the Alpha timeline, Meteor 3 was narrated as a rich source of the new Tronium material, granted that Earth technology at that point was semi-advanced with all the other robots in the game. On the other hand, the OG timeline makes Meteor 3 the sole source of strength for Earth's military technology, making them appear very weak and uncivilized as the Zovorg and Balmarians treat them to be initially. This is going to be a major point for later. It's a build-up to the theory and to how we're thinking the SRX is going to come up, so stay tuned to that. This plot point also increases the significance and symbolism of the SRX, making it the sword and shield that protects Earth from alien invaders, specifically the Irrigators once again. After the first Alpha game, the SRX was deemed too unstable and dangerous due to its capacity to create a 50-kilometer blast radius when the Tronium engine reaches over the threshold during its full drive. This unpredictable factor caused the Federation to disassemble the R-Series until situations necessitates its use. Everyone in the Alpha numbers did not know that it is still operable until the situation required its use at the beginning of the third Alpha game, which is, I believe, around Stage 6, and that's the first and last debut of SRX in that game, respectively. Its first and last appearance in Alpha 3 sets up its defeat, putting up one last fight against the might of Z Balmari Imperial Galactic Frontier Inspection Army, which is pretty much the main army consisting of the entire 7 fleets of the Balmarians. And it is led by none other than Hazal Gozo himself, the one who destroys the SRX. Not only was SRX destroyed, Aya Kobayashi, the pilot of the R3 and daughter of Kenzo Kobayashi, was abducted by Hazal due to her latent TK potential. Now we're gonna get to the good part. The Alpha timeline has always established that the SRX is a prototype unit of the project, signifying the inevitable rollout of a more optimized Tronium engine or completed form, the SRX Altered, or as Ryusei named it, the Banpreus. To the newer fans who doesn't recognize the name tease of the Banpreus, it pretty much is a reflection of the original producer of the OG games, which is Banpresto. Anyways, the strongest technological difference besides having a more optimized and higher energy output is the utilization of the XN dimension by the SRX Altered. This leads us to think that Gilliam's System XN will be at play again, considering XNL also appeared and he had the XN guy, so too many connections going on here, so they're kinda leading there. Although, not much has been hinted in OG with how the Banpreas will manifest because the current SRX is actively being deployed in wars against different alien factions, in contrast to being sealed in Alpha Timeline. This removes the necessity to produce a so-called completed version of the SRX prototype, because the SRX is doing its job, which actually, both story and gameplay, it's still relevant. It is the main machine used whenever they need to amplify and gather thoughts through the T-Link system. The most important one being able to get out of the Ainz's world, pocket space, and get back to their home world. And by thoughts, I mean being able to manifest into physical form, which also the Moon Dwellers touch upon, using the negative energy source manifested in the Lamalis that comes out the Crossgate. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the Banpreos is not gonna be built, it's just that that reason alone is enough to delay its production, unless, like I said, they BS their way into doing it in secrecy. Back on topic, there also has been no drop hints about recreating the System XN, if you guys noticed. The last time we heard of this was during OG2 with Vendel Mauser. Maybe a little bit in OG Gaiden, but I wouldn't know because it's still not translated. Something we want to look forward to after all. But shoutouts to Vendel, this guy knew actually what Earth needed. This war philosophy is what contributes to the Earth in the OG timeline being alive because the humans' military technology has advanced enough to fend off any other invaders. He's essentially the second beyond Zoldark. Now this leads us to the question, how is the SRX destruction and Banpreos rollout going to be handled in the next game or games? With the pacing of the OG timeline as is, we are looking at seeing the main Balmar invasion fleet towards the end of the next game or beginning of the next game due to various reasons. One of them is the steady transition of power balance the past 3 games. The technological arms race between Terrans began in OG Gaiden as a residue and influence of the Shadow Mirrors, and then second OG continued this with Yuzet's influence through the Gaia Sabers. Then finally, Moondwellers advanced it to the next stage of openly acquiring EOT directly from the source instead of reverse engineering bits of learned technology. Grantid, Ariad, and the Zovag warp devices are great examples of this. To summarize the OG timeline's military prowess, they are at a stage where they could not be easily and openly conquered by invaders, but at the same time they're still in the lower to mid level compared to the big powerhouses such as Balmar and Zovorg. Focusing on Moondwellers, the significance of Fury technology became very impactful to a point that the very dangerous Time Flow engine was reproduced to combat the Larsenum. This would lead us to believe that the recreation of System XN would also be within reason at this point to combat upcoming threats. Either they're gonna pull a Time Flow engine Raji style where he just has the knowledge and recreated the Time Flow engine, or they're gonna salvage data of System XN when they end up in the Shadow Mirror verse, which they have plenty of reasons to actually explore. There's Beowulf, there's Selena, and many other things that could be integrated. I'm thinking in the lines of more endless frontier machines originating from the Shadow Mirror blueprints, as well as the SRW-64 originals. Moreover, Fury technology became openly accessible for the Earth after the final battle in Gaula Furia, potentially skyrocketing EOT production in between Moondwellers and the next game. So yeah, if you look at it at this angle, there have been soft setups of where we are going with this. The other major reason we might see a scrapped SRX towards the end of the next game or the beginning of the next is the destruction of Earth's own Crossgate post Moondwellers. The lack of this leverage minimizes the reason the entire Balmar fleet would mobilize in a remote planet as they so identify the Earth. Furthermore, Mechibos hinted that their home planet could also have a Crossgate, indicating Balmar might have it as well. This lessens the reason Balmar would invade the solar system, and they would need a more urgent reason to do so in the OG timeline. Remember, their initial intended goal is cultivating Earth's human talents and their technological advancements, and as I have been discussing, Earth is not quite there yet. To support this idea, we can take note of the investigation process of the Golar Golem squad in Moondwellers. The Golar Golems at that time are most recently conducting investigations on the absence of Yuzet Gozo, implying their lack of awareness of his defeat during the Sealing War finale. I'm assuming the Balmerians are up to date with his status until the final battle against the Gaia Sabers in Aidunus Island, where he disappeared after attempting to escape. But granted they know about Ing as an important lead, we can speculate that controlling Earth from behind the scenes was a collective plan of the Balmerians to facilitate technological growth. Upon regaining his past memories, however, is where Yuzeth deviates from the plan hence the manifestation of Adamantron. And let's remember that the battle happened in Crossgate, so there's no way for the Golar Golems or any other Balmar scouts to know what happened to him. Since we know in the Alpha timeline that by the time Hazel Gozo destroys the SRX, he is aware of Yuzet's loss to Earth, we can safely assume that the Balmarians do not know of Yuzet's defeat as of yet in OG. At least that's my complex theory. The more simple one is upon Yuzeth missing in Aedonis Island, the Golar Golem squad started snooping around different facilities to look for him and actually find massive amounts of data about Ing. Yuzeth has a lot of data on Ing because that's his main weapon and variable to get past his destiny, as we discussed in the first episode of OG Talk. But both theories follow the premise that Yuzeth and the Golar Golem squad and or maybe the main Balmarian fleet are in cahoots with each other in cultivating Earth. The Golar Golems and the main Balmarian fleet, knowing that Yuzeth dies or is defeated, could potentially trigger the Earth to be on top of the Balmar threat list, in addition to the potential rapid technological advancements the Earth has undergone, as we have been discussing. Basing from all these information, my guess is Yuzeth has been holding out information on Earth's growth when reporting to Balmar, because he has plans of his own. We can deduce this because the activation of the Septuagint or Meteor 3 in OG1 is the primary indicator that Earth is reaching a threatening level for the Balmarians. Granted, we see no action from Balmar as of yet, this theory makes a lot of sense. To sum things up, Earth is not a threat at this rate, and compared to the crossover timeline, with a few exceptions such as Neo Grandzon, the Steel Dragon squad is not ready to face the might of either the Zovorg or Balmarian fleet. Going back to the SRX, it just doesn't make sense to destroy early on. I am cashing more towards getting another full game with the SRX with hopefully quality of life features. I personally have troubles deploying it by 2nd OG and Moon Dwellers simply because of the 4-unit requirements, although the trade-off remains remarkable with that HTB cannon and R-formation setup. Whether the next game will be the SRX's last or not, gameplay-wise we should be able to deploy a combined SRX similar to Hyperion or G-compatible Kaiser. Or maybe it is time to finally transition to a squad system, mimicking the Alpha 3 experience. Granted, we do have plenty of existing OG units and plenty more potential units to come up. It is a good time to start in the next game. In conclusion, there is still many uncharted territory with how the Balmarians are gonna re-enter the picture, because we only get like 2 to 3 episodes of introduction, early setup of the Golar Golems. That is something to talk about in other videos as well. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe for more mecha content. Don't forget to check out my walkthrough channel as well as support me on Patreon. Any little bit of support helps.